part 2 of this trig function thing. If you have the lengths of the sides of your triangle, but you don't know the measure of the angle, you can determine the measure of the angle simply by using the inverse of your trig functions. Okay? When we say the inverse, we're talking not a reciprocal, like secant is the reciprocal of cosine. We're saying the inverse, so it's like undoing the sine. In this situation, we have our sine. You'd first determine what, say, your sine is, or you could use your cosine, or you could use your tangent. Okay? You'd first determine what your sine is, which function you have. So we know we have the opposite over the hypotenuse. So therefore, 7 out of 25. That's what our sine of the angle is. So to use the inverse sine, we put the ratio into the inverse sine, and then that will tell us what our angle is. And the way you would do that is if you have your calculator, I'll use it on both of these. Okay. You would notice that where you have the sine button, right above it, you see sin -1, okay? Cos -1, tan -1. Same here. Sine, right above it, sin -1, cos -1, tan -1. That's telling you it's the inverse. So I would go, after I turn the calculator on, clear, I would go second sin -1, 7 divided by 25, close parentheses, hit equals, and there is my angle measure, 16.26. Rounding off to the nearest tenth, we get 16.3 degrees. We could do the same thing with the cosine. Okay? We could go, the cosine of b would be the same ratio, 7 out of 25. Therefore, the cosine -1 of 7/25, and you put it into your calculator. You go second cosine 7 divided by 25, close parenthesis, hit equals, in this case enter, and you see that the cosine of, the answer for that angle, B, is 73.7 degrees. So we can use the inverse cosine to find the measure of the angle, given that we know the sides. Okay? So now you're going to try a couple of them. I'll give you a couple to do. In here, let me see if I can get up high enough so you can actually see them. On this first one, the blue one, I want you to do all of them. The sine A, sine B, get all of those inverses. And then when you get to these last two, you'll soon, once you've done these, you'll see what the minimum amount you need to do in order to determine both the measure of angle A and the measure of angle B on both of these triangles. Okay? So that's the other part that you want to do to get yourself ready for next week.